and welcome to Front Row at the Rep. I'm Becca Gardner, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Public Relations at Arkansas Repertory Theater. And with me today are two cast members from our world premiere production of Towns Facing Railroads and the author herself, Jo McDougall. Jo is sitting directly across from me, and next to her is Joanne Johnson, who plays the character of Woman. And right next to me is Nancy Ehrman, who plays the character Girl. Welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jo, why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about the show? And since you are the playwright, and we're so happy to have you here in town, and you've been here with us through the entire rehearsal process, and
Yes.
are here now during the run of the show. So tell us a little bit about the background of how you came up with this play.
Well, the poems are from all of my books. I have 5 books. And when we did a production at my university, Pittsburgh State University in Pittsburgh, Kansas, that led to the making of a film in which we used my poetry without any other narrative or any other script. And I was asked to show that a few years ago at the Little Rock Rotary Club. And unbeknownst to me, Robert Hupp was in the audience, our artistic director of the Rep, as everyone knows. And he then approached me about putting the poems on the stage. And that was a very exciting project that took about 3 years for it to come to fruition. So that the poems then were sent to the director, Eve Adamson. The books were. Eve and I got together one hot week in July this year.
In New York City?
No, right here.
Oh, right here.
In Little Rock, right at Peachtree Apartments.
It was very hot
we
then.
managed to get all the poems pages Xeroxed, hundreds of them, and spread them on the floor and started sorting them out. We got them into some kind of categories, then Eve and I both went home and worked, and Eve came up with what I think is a really beautiful structure, a kind of an arc of 3 people in a small town, any small town, any big town actually, but mainly this focuses on small towns, where they're taking a spiritual journey. They are going from longing through love and loss, and we have some sex, and we have some voodoo, and we have some gossip, and it's all acted out beautifully on the stage by these 2 wonderful actresses and Joe Graves.
Well, now you're this poetry is spanning 5 books of poetry. So tell people who may not know about the gist of are all the books different? Are all the poetry in them the same? You know, what kind of topics do you cover in small town? Are they all about small towns?
No, they're not. But for this play, we chose the ones that are about small towns, poems that have rural backgrounds, poems that were dramatic monologues, so we could really have something wonderful in the way of material to give to the actors to interpret. So we chose with that in mind. We chose with the categories that we had come up with in mind, and I don't want to tell too much about the categories because I want people to come and be surprised at what they see, but we do hit the touchstones of human existence.
Okay.
So that it has, I hope, and we think, a universal appeal.
Right. Well, now, Joanne, you play the character called Woman.
Yes.
And so you represent a mother and lover and all kinds of different characters within the scope of the play. So could you tell us a little more about this experience and what drew you to the role and about your many different characters that you play?
Well, the first thing is I've worked at Arkansas Repertory Theater before, and have always really enjoyed working here. So
well,
that was part of the thing that drew me.
Oh, great.
And then there's
we love to hear that.
it's a great place to work. It really is. And then Eve Adamson is the director, and I had worked with her once before on a production of All My Sons. And I was so impressed with her. I'm really kind of in awe of her, frankly. I think she's a marvelous director, and she's very, very strong and very passionate about what she does, and yet has this remarkable gift, I think, for not saying anything beyond what is absolutely essential to say to help you, so that you have the experience as an actor both of having a wonderful amount of creative freedom. She doesn't interfere with that, but she knows just how to shape it, when to reel you back in, which is one of her challenges with me. And, she's just marvelous, so that was another plus. Then Joe Graves, who's our man, had played with me and all my sons, and I fell absolutely in love with him. He's a wonderful man and a fantastic actor. So I was thrilled about that. Then Joe kindly sent me her books, and I fell in love with the poetry. And then Nancy was kind of like the last bright, shining penny to drop in the mix. I didn't actually meet Nancy until I got here, and immediately liked her. And I think we get along just great. So I guess that's the gist of how I ended up being here.
Sure. Could you tell us more about the roles that you play in the show, too?
Oh, well, it's a little difficult to describe. The poems reflect a wide range of people. Looked at from one perspective, you might imagine that they're all inhabitants of one small town. So I play a mother who's very disturbed about her young adolescent daughter buying a strapless dress. In another poem, I may be recalling my childhood first love and my experience with this man and becoming engaged by voodoo, as Joe said. Another poem reflects a woman who's trying to figure out a way to maintain her mate's interest in her sexually. There are older women who think about the loss of their mother, about their own end of life approaching, and about the things that they value. So there's a huge wide range. Although it's generic woman, it's like any of us in our lives. We all play many roles, depending on the circumstances in which we find ourselves or the relationships we're dealing with. I'm a mother in my real life, but I've also been a daughter and an adolescent girl and the lover of a man, you know. So you draw on all those things as an actor for this particular piece. And it's particularly challenging, I think, because it's a wider range of characters. If you have one role in a play, it in a way is simpler.
Right, and you're making all these transitions pretty quickly throughout the play.
And you also have the ongoing relationships of the play and the storyline and the plot. This doesn't have that. All of the relationships shift and the little stories change. So.
Right.
It's very challenging. Fun, though.
But the stories are, I mean, the poems were chosen to weave into and out of one another, so that there is an arc. There is a kind of a story being told, but it's not the traditional plot.
Right, the different themes as the play continues
to shift.
It's
just the different emotions that they go through. Sometimes they're talking to themselves, the characters. Many times they're talking with each other, which is a lot of fun. There are a lot of gossipy poems where we're talking about real characters in the town, and then sometimes they're just including the audience.
And Nancy, you play one of the other. There are two women in the show, one man. So you play Girl. That's your character title, but really it's multiple characters as well.
Multiple characters as well.
So what drew you to the role and
Well, I've worked with Eve Adamson, the director, a few times, and met with her about this almost a year ago. And she described to me briefly what it is and described Joe's poetry. And it sounded very interesting to work on something that was a theatrical piece but wasn't your typical script, characters, plot, something that's been done before, repeatedly perhaps in some instances. And what I've been doing a lot at that time was a lot of Shakespeare and a lot of classical theater, which is what I primarily do. So this just sounded very different, very exciting. Eve could hardly describe to me what it was.
Right.
She wasn't sure herself.
Well, and I think that it has kind of shifted since we began the whole process of launching the play, which we can talk more about when we get back. We're going to take a short commercial break, and we'll be right back.
In the wake of Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, countless Arkansans have opened their hearts, their homes, their places of worship, and their pocketbooks to care for so many of our neighbors from the Gulf whose lives have literally been transformed by these horrific natural disasters. I'm U.S. Senator Blanche Lincoln, and I've never felt more proud to be an Arkansan as I do now. If you'd like to aid those who've been affected by these hurricanes, call your local Red Cross today to find out how you can help. It's never too late to be a good neighbor.
Hoorah! Listen up, people. The Young Marines is a program that builds discipline, leadership, and teamwork. It strengthens the lives of America's youth by helping them understand the value of maintaining a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. This country needs active, dedicated adults, and the Young Marines make that happen. It's all about discipline.
To learn more about becoming involved with the Young Marines organization or to make a tax-deductible contribution, please visit our website at youngmarines.com.
Go to jail for a gun crime, and your family serves a sentence with you.
Welcome back to Front Row at the Rep. I'm Becca Gardner, and with me today are two cast members from our world premiere production of Towns Facing Railroads, Joanne Johnson and Nancy Ayerman, and also our author, Jo McDougall, who is in town just for this event, so we're happy to have her with us. And we were talking before the break about how this show has evolved from when the Rep first decided to produce it, and probably even before that. So my experience is that I had a script months ago, and it seems to keep changing and just evolving into what it is. And I think that in theater especially, a little bit of that happens every night, even when we rehearse and we set things and blocking and things like that, but it seems to sort of evolve. Can you guys just give us a sense of what that's been like for you in the process of it and bringing it to the stage?
Well, one thing that just popped into my head as you were talking about that was when the element of the audience is added, which is when people hear about theater, I don't think it's necessarily the first thought, is that when you come to the theater as a member of the audience, you are a fully alive, participating part of the event, whether you realize it or not. And so your reaction or non-reaction or dropping your program or coughing or bursting into tears or having to get up and go to the bathroom, whatever that is, it's going to happen. It's not like going to a film. We have to adapt to that and adjust to that in some way. So yes, live theater is always new. It's different every night. Jo's been coming to all the performances, and I think she can probably attest to that.
Yes, that's really been interesting, and that's the reason I never tire of sitting through the performance, because the actors are somewhat different each night. There's just a little nuance, a change, but particularly audiences. And one night there will be a laugh at something we didn't expect. The next night there'll be not a laugh. But there's really a pulsating life going on there between the audience and the actors, and it's wonderful. because it's on the second stage, so you have that very intimate box there. And also the set by McDougall is an extraordinarily beautiful, evocative piece that, again, I don't want to divulge it, but it is small town without really saying small town. But once you see it, you know where you are.
And I think a lot of people who come down to the Rep regularly can recognize Mike's work, and you know, he's a genius. He can do a lot on a very small budget, but it looks great, and I think it really captures the essence of the show.